Lubramine, proud sponsors of the really useful health show, The Joints Series. Use it or lose it.
It's human nature for us to get interested after the fact. So it's really not until our joints start aching that it grabs our attention. And sometimes we're even in denial because we don't really want to face the fact that perhaps it's a sign of old age and we don't do anything about it. But if we ignore it, there's just a spiral of worsening because the underlying situation is that those aches and pains probably mean that there's established arthritis which is becoming progressively worse. So the trick really is to actually face up to it so that we can actually learn how to deal with it and break the trend and also reverse it, because it is possible to overcome those symptoms. Arthritis, gingivitis, the gum disease, heart disease and psoriasis affect very different parts of our body, but they all have something in common, and that's inflammation. Inflammation is actually a very effective process of making sure that invaders don't actually infiltrate your body. And that's all very well when it's acute, like an insect bite or sunburn. But when it becomes chronic or low grade, and your immune system remains revved up, rather than it doing good, you end up having a battle inside your body. And scientists are realizing that this life-saving process can also cause disease. So it needs to be looked at very carefully. And the fact is we're living longer than we've lived ever before, and there may be a question over whether the inflammatory process weakens as we age, so maybe we're not as good at dealing with it. There are many different types of arthritis and conditions affecting our muscles, ligaments and bones. Historically, arthritis was treated, funnily enough, with diet. Going back through the ages, conventional doctors, as well as alternative practitioners, were using diet as a means of treatment. But in the last 50 years, there's been a big change with the advent of the pharmaceutical industry, and there are lots of drugs available now for treatment, the anti-inflammatory, the immune-altering drugs, which do have their place and do work for some of the time, but sometimes they do produce unwanted side effects. Rheumatoid arthritis involves lots of swelling and pain in the joints, and it usually comes about in a symmetrical pattern. So for example, if you look at your fingers and you see you've got swollen joints, it's usually pretty much the same on both hands. Our bodies produce antibodies which are there to fight the enemy and keep us safe from toxins. But what happens with arthritis is that they start to fight each other. The question is, what triggers the battle in the first place, and why does it go into a chronic phase? There are lots of possible triggers. One is food allergies, and another one is genetic factors. Women are actually 3 times more likely to suffer with rheumatoid arthritis than men, which is interesting in itself. The commonest age that women get arthritis is usually in their 40s. And it often comes about in the winter months as opposed to in the summer. It's a long-term condition that is relieved very much by either complementary or orthodox medicine, but there definitely is a solution. And very often, diet's involved, as we'll be talking about in future shows. The other common type of arthritis is osteoarthritis. And that's where you've got a loss of cartilage within the joint. So you'll see that there's a distortion in your fingers, in your knees, in your hips, and in your thumbs, as well as in your spine. About 10% of people over 60 are affected by osteoarthritis, and it is more common in women and very often runs in families. With osteoarthritis, it's a degenerative condition with wear and tear over time rather than inflammation, which is more associated with the rheumatoid arthritis. And if you're overweight, you need to lose the weight, because for every pound you're carrying, it's going to weigh at least 3 times as much on your joints and put even more strain on you. There's no actual cure for osteoarthritis, but there are lots of things that will reduce the disability and the discomfort, and we're going to be talking about those in the next shows. In the next show, I'm going to be concentrating on whether your diet is making you ache. So do come and join me.
Lubramine, proud sponsors of the really useful health show, The Joint Series. Use it or lose it.